The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone, and who doesn't want to make self-growth normal, then make sure to smash that like button. Lewis Howes is a podcaster, YouTuber, entrepreneur, speaker, author, former pro athlete. His content is very success conscious. It's kind of like Tom Bilyeu's, except it's a little bit less intelligent and a little bit more emotional, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. The way I see it in the information age, when it comes to what matters most in your life, pick your poison fast but carefully. He's interviewed Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone and also Kobe Bryant. RIP to Kobe Bryant. I think all three of those he's interviewed at least twice. Ariana Huffington, Jack Canfield, the writer of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Grant Cardone cried in the one episode. Converted some of our Grant haters that we have. So Lewis Howes has improved a lot, at least as an interviewer. In the last I discovered him maybe 3 to 4 years ago. And that's just 3 to 4. But let's talk about this book that he presumably named after his podcast, The School of Greatness. With this book, you will learn to recognize and harness your potential for greatness, the importance of dreams and the tools that exist within you to make those dreams a reality. And when people talk about stuff like this, it sounds vague to me, but I remember when I first found out that he stopped playing football at some point. I was like, if you're a former athlete and a former athlete, not a farmer athlete, a former athlete, and you have a podcast about greatness, why don't you just keep playing football to live your greatness out to the fullest and then start a podcast after you retire? I mean, then he will already have a following. I don't remember where I heard this, but sometimes when you're at the bottom, all you can do is look up. But what he noticed is that the goal of being a pro football player was too discreet. I mean, sometimes you gotta change your plan here. Sometimes the whole goal might be wrong. I mean, I wanted to be a famous rapper and singer and producer, but a lot of things happened there that totally, it was almost like a realization of priorities and what I understood as important in my life. And what he said was missing was like a feeling of there's something that he doesn't feel like he's part of something way bigger than himself. And I really kind of felt that. He had all this passion and energy. For some reason, it's something about it he just didn't know what to do with. Imagine having passion and energy and a bunch of debt on your table. Just being in a rut, not knowing what to do with yourself. In 1 year on LinkedIn, where at first he had no background with business, but was willing definitely to work his tail off, he became what Malcolm Gladwell likes to call a connector. He made over $2 million in 3 years. LinkedIn. I've been really curious about this recently for lead analysis purposes. Please pause the video and let me know in the comments. What do you guys think of LinkedIn? Do you use it to do what you're doing? How does it help? You know, 3 years ago, I was honestly pretty underwhelmed by this book. It sounded like a typical mindset, success, positivity related book. But after re-listening to it, not even having watched that many more interviews since then, it's like a concise, organized version of lessons from the podcast. This almost blueprint he's created out of the most useful ideas and insights he's picked up from smashing that like button in case you haven't already for the YouTube algorithm. It helps with ranking and SEO and all this other stuff, and I really appreciate it because so much work goes into making these videos. In just the vision chapter, like concepts like turning the telescope around make me feel like this book is a little bit deeper than just
a motivation manifesto.
Our friend Kyle Maynard has no arms or legs and climbs Mount Kilimanjaro. That's insane. But how did he do it? He did it by treating adversity like advantage. How he does that is in the book. I don't want to spill all the beans or marbles or whatever the saying is. But another book that this one mentions that explains similar stories on larger scales is one I just reviewed called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Although he did it alone, Maynard did not climb Kilimanjaro for himself. He did it to send a message to our troops who have sacrificed their limbs for our freedom, that you can still create the life you want. half a dozen people every year. They actually die. People with arms and legs trying to kill. Did I really say trying to kill Kilimanjaro? Trying to climb Kilimanjaro. What?
In a world where you can kill mountains.
What is a champion's mindset really? And some of the terminology here I'm going to talk about a little bit later in this review, because I don't just have positive things to say about this book. Howes says about different champions in sports that from a distance they appear superhuman or super lucky, or both. They get all the calls, all the money, all the best parking spots. Parking spots, of all little things that he could mention. It's an interesting one. The ball always seems to bounce their way. It's like they're living in a different world than the rest of us. And in a way, they are. I'm not gonna lie, there is something that I got from this chapter that kind of changed my perspective on reality in a way that going forward, I think I will need to be careful with. Maybe not, and by the way, maybe not the way reality is, but the way it can be. He also talks specifically, like, I don't remember the last time I heard a chapter so specific about this, but like specifically about what exactly the hustle it really is. By the way, for each chapter there's like a set of different activities to do. So I listened to the audiobook and it felt or sounded like a less saturated, more lean version. At least like content-wise, maybe not like structurally and organizationally, of Hustle, Believe, Receive by Sarah Centrella. I try not to mention too many other books or authors and stuff like that in these reviews. However, the way he talks about health and like mastering the body, something about it reminded me of the way Napoleon Hill talks about it in The Law of Success, who, by the way, he actually mentions in at least one or two other chapters. One of them is the mastermind chapter, and it's kind of hard to believe nowadays that people are talking about masterminds. But I mean, Napoleon Hill was astoundingly ahead of his own time. Something I liked about this chapter is when he talked about like different types of people in larger or smaller teams, analyzers, promoters, controllers, and supporters, and what to do and keep in mind if you're whichever of the four, and some other odds and ends to consider. Overall, I did enjoy the book, but only really after a second listen. There is quite a decent amount of details that I wasn't even trying to find between the lines that opened me up just a little to what did not originally look like it was there for me to understand. I ultimately think the way he approached this subject was interesting. However, I think the subject of greatness it's ultimately very, very saturated. Greatness is the quality of being great. Great means an extent, amount, or intensity considerably above the norm or average. Malcolm Gladwell, Nassim Nicholas Taleb, Grant Cardone, Tim Grover, Brian Tracy, and many others, these guys have talked plenty about subjects like the quality of being of an extent, amount, or intensity that's considerably above the average or norm, and how to achieve and maintain it. What did the reviews say? The majority of helpful reviews on Amazon, the negative ones at least, they trashed his narration. Howes, to me, is something about his voice, even though he has a podcast and so much experience in it, and he's a speaker, and this is all these things. And he just doesn't really seem passionate and extreme and full of energy. But in terms of greatness, I feel like for some reason that's what these people are expecting of him. You can be great and not super, like it seems like, to the degree where it seems like you're uncomfortably energetic to some people. I think, at least. And I also think that he has tackled many demons from his past. Because of that, and maybe other reasons, he has become a compassionate, gentle giant. I think he's like 6'5" or something. And I don't understand, for my fellow listeners, why people say narration sucks. I really don't think his narration was that bad. Again, like, I was a self-produced rapper and singer for 3 years. I made all the beats that are in these videos. Then I stopped for too many reasons to list. I actually kind of miss making music. I may start again someday when I have a much larger following. But because of making music, what drives me insane is the quality of the audio when that's really bad. And in my experience, that's actually pretty rare with audiobooks. Why? Because Audible for audiobooks is not really like SoundCloud for music, okay? The most helpful, in my opinion at least, negative review that I could find on Audible, it states that there's nothing new, truly new in general under the sun, but mentioning that you make your bed over 7 times is just beating it into the ground. I don't remember him saying it more than twice. I mean, building a winning team or cultivating a positive mindset that primes you for high performance. These are age-old concepts that alone have been beaten to death. I haven't reviewed, to be honest, I really kind of haven't reviewed Make Your Bed because I'm under the impression, for some reason, that it's just another book about the different small things that we do every day and how they make us great in the end. And I'll probably end up reviewing it at some point anyway. I mean, it's a very popular book. Howes focuses way too much on his own perspective, and I was looking for that break in his story to truly step out and focus on how to apply some of the knowledge he learned from his podcast guests. This part I just can't understand because he does this at the end of every chapter in a way that it's really operational. I mean, a lot of people who get these books, believe it or not, we look for things that we can apply. And sometimes we would rather have the author tell us to apply the things. I think that those things, Lewis's perspective and how he kind of extracted it from what he's learned from other people, more importantly, I would argue those are the reasons to get this book. Maybe that's just my opinion. I don't know. The person who said this at the bottom, they were like, maybe this is just my opinion. But I think for anyone who's watching this, I would get the book for those reasons. The best gifts are the ones you can give. The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. Energy and persistence conquer all things. If you concentrate on what you have, you'll always have more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you'll never have enough. Direction 1. I recommend this book for someone who likes to learn from the mistakes of others, and someone who likes to truly swim upstream in life. And definitely someone who really likes his podcast. I definitely love to hear what someone who really likes this podcast but hasn't checked out the book, I'd love to hear what they have to say as far as, did you get that much out of it? Like, what is said different from this book and the podcast? I mean, if you've learned things that are already in the book, do whatever you can to just focus on what you can get out of the book. Squeeze the value out of it. Every little drop of, I didn't know what to say, drop of juice or juice of drop. Both, okay? Do everything you can to do that. Direction 2. If you like this book, and I don't know if I ever say this often, but if you like this book, and especially if you don't like this book, definitely check out The Mask of Masculinity, also by Lewis Howes. It is illuminating. It is eye-widening, not just eye-opening. Eye-opening is not enough. It's also eye-widening. That book, and probably Rise and Grind by Damon John, also talks about a couple of the people I actually mentioned in this review, and some of the people Lewis Howes mentioned in the book, The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video, if you want to check those out as well. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below, and also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this. Like this is like 10 minutes of your time, and people do this and they don't subscribe to my videos. I don't know why that is, but if you have subscribed and you want to turn up just a notch, maybe turn on the notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.